Cincinnati's first responders. They are the people who run toward danger to keep you safe.
The community still looks to us to maintain peace and order in what is often a disorderly world.
On this episode of Let's Talk Cincy, we look at diversity among the ranks through the organizations that formed to bring equality. The Sentinel Police Association and Cincinnati African American Firefighters Association, the history of their members, their challenges to rise up in the ranks and gain the numbers to represent the communities they serve, and where they want to go from here.
From WLWT, this is Let's Talk Cincy.
The diversity among Cincinnati's first responders continues to grow.
And part of that has to do with two organizations, the Sentinel Police Association and Cincinnati African American Firefighters Association. Welcome to Let's Talk Cincy. I'm Curtis Fuller.
And I'm Alexis Rogers. The Cincinnati Fire Department was established in 1853 and is considered to be the first paid professional fire department in the United States. However, it took more than 100 years for the first African American to be employed by the department.
And we want to talk a little bit more about the history. We are joined now by the president of CAFA, Will West, and also retired Lieutenant Benny Shepard. Welcome, first of all, to the program.
Thank you.
So we should say, you know, before African Americans were hired on the department, there was something called the Bucket Brigade. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, the Bucket Brigade was, it paid was, it run like a volunteer. They didn't have apparatus or anything, you know. They put out most of the fires with buckets. That's what they called the Bucket Brigade. And they would pass the buckets down through one person to another, and that's how they got the name Bucket Brigade.
Wow.
It's amazing to me that it took so long to actually hire an African-American firefighter in the department. Let's talk about that. What took so long?
Well, what took so long was segregation and discrimination in the country, not only in Cincinnati, but that's the way the system was, the law was written, and blacks wasn't allowed to come into the fire department because of segregation. And so they had the first black firefighter to be hired was Herbie Baines. He was the first black firefighter in 55. He was hired as a black firefighter, and he had discrimination and things did against him to keep him from being a firefighter. But he persevered, and he resigned as a result of it because he couldn't get promoted, and he didn't have the different equipment to go forward, and so he resigned from the fire department because of that.
Yeah, he passed away, we should point out, just last year, age of 85, I think you were saying. Talk a little bit about how things are now.
Now things are better. Things are better, but of course, you know, we still have our struggles that we have to attend to. That's why our association has been in existence since 1980, and you know, we're here to basically just ensure that the fire department continues to diversify, and as well as continue to ensure that our members that are on the fire department are treated fairly.
It's amazing because I feel like we continue to have this conversation, especially when we see, you know, different African American associations in lines of service, and people will ask, like, well, is this really necessary? What do they do now? How do you have that conversation with people? What are some of the things that you all are doing now in the community?
Well, in the community, as we've always done, we try our best to stay active and personally involved, hence our motto, being involved personally. We have continuous, throughout the year, engagements in the community, whether it be school supply drives to help, you know, the kids, whether it be toy drives around Christmas time, our turkey drives for Thanksgiving, you know, providing for families that are a little less fortunate or even just hitting hard times.
Give me some perspective of numbers, because how many firefighters we have total, and how many African American firefighters do we have?
On the Cincinnati Fire Department, there is an estimated number. I'm saying estimated because people are retiring very fast at an alarming rate right now. Estimated at about 850. There are over around 350 African American and minorities on the fire department, and our organization makes up a little over 200.
Okay.
Wow.
That's good. That's good.
I'm amazed to hear that, because that's a lot like what the city of Cincinnati is made up as well. So.
And that's our goal, to kind of match the city of Cincinnati's ratio of African Americans versus Caucasians, at least to do our best to balance out the fire department, so that even the kids can see, you know, that there's someone that looks like them doing this job, and maybe it'll inspire them.
I would imagine that you get back and you get a chance to talk to some of the active firefighters. What are you telling them these days?
Well, I visit the firehouses, and I kind of encourage them to encourage their kids and their relatives to join the fire department. It's a good occupation, a good career. It's dangerous, but so is a lot of other jobs are dangerous. And so that's a very good occupation for the young generation.
Well, we appreciate you being here. It's good to let people know a little bit about what's taking place, and thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me here. I
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, a notable milestone in the Cincinnati Fire Department happened just 35 years ago.
The first woman to be hired to work as a firefighter in the Queen City, when Let's Talk Cincy returns.
Welcome back. I'm Jan Michelle Lemon-Kearney, and I am here with a trailblazer fire specialist and retired fire specialist, Vicki Goodson. Welcome. So looking back, and Alexis mentioned that the fire department started in 1853, but it wasn't until 1984 that we had any women on the Cincinnati Fire Department. You were one of the first, along with Paula Duncan and Batista Jackson. All three of you were African American.
Yes, ma'am.
So what was that like, breaking into an all-male, mostly white culture in the fire department?
Very, very different. I knew that I was going into, a workforce where all men, and 100% wasn't gonna do. I had to give it 110, 150% to keep up. Yeah, well, to keep up with them, or to get recognized as doing something that I'm supposed to do right.
And what was that culture like? Because you had to sleep in the firehouse. I mean, you guys have 24-hour shifts.
It was very different. I tell you what, I did not understand a tour until I went on a tour, until I worked at the fire station. It took me forever to figure out how you work 24 on, 48 off, and then go back to work 2 days later. It took me forever to figure it out until I got there.
And recently there was a gender equity study done, and I know that Fire Chief Winston said we still have work to do. He said we're not going to change the culture until we change the numbers. What do you think? What kind of changes are you thinking for the fire department?
Well, the number of women, I think, are up in the fire department now. I think we have like 35 now. When I came on, of course, we were the first 3. And it took a while for the numbers to get up there. Like now we're at like 35 or maybe even 40 right now. And there are
out of about 800 something men. I mean, it's still really small.
About 35 women, yes.
So what's going to change? What changes need to be made?
For women to become firefighters, I think we should get out there in the public. Women firefighters in the public, in the eyes, to let young ladies, young men know, hey, you could be a firefighter too. Of course, that was one of the things that I did when I was a firefighter, was to be out there in the public, educating the public on fire safety and educating the young kids on what it takes to become a firefighter.
Right, because you were everywhere. I was telling you, I see you all over the internet. You're at different schools and community groups talking about fire safety.
Yeah, as a firefighter, you have to be 18 years old. You could be a firefighter at 18 years old. So I would start encouraging kids like very young, 14 years old. You want to be a firefighter? This is what it takes to become a firefighter, go to school, graduate from school, keep your nose clean, and you could be a firefighter. Telling them you actually could take the test at 17 years old. I actually had a few of the young folks that came through and the Explorers program that we had to actually take the test at 17 years old.
Wow, that's
and
fantastic.
Became firefighters.
Wow. And so what advice do you give to women who want to be firefighters, or young girls who want to be firefighters?
Live the dream. I mean, go for it. I mean, nothing can stop you from doing what you want to do, but you. Only person can stop you is you.
I love that, and that's why you're a trailblazer. Thank you so much for joining us. We really enjoyed talking to you. You're gonna have to come back. Upcoming, we're gonna talk about helping to give Black officers a voice in the communities they serve. So next on Let's Talk Cincy, the work of the Sentinel Police Association to bridge the gap between the department and the citizens of Cincinnati.
Well, welcome back, everyone. African Americans have been members of the Cincinnati Police Department for at least 120 years.
That is a lot of time,
Yeah.
and some have compiled outstanding records. We're joined by Officer Lewis Arnold Sr. and retired Officer Scotty Johnson, really friends of many here in Cincinnati. I feel like we always see them, and they're actually representing the Sentinel Police Association. Guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You all have
Thank
done
you
so much
for
work
having
in this community for so long. Let's talk about where the association even started from.
1968 was the start of the Sentinel Police Association. You hear names like Captain Arthur Harmon, Artie Crum, Wendell Young, Roger Davis. Those were the gentlemen's names that laid a foundation for us to stand on now in 2020.
Yeah.
And those were the gentlemen that saw the same three issues that we're still dealing with today, or I should say these active guys are dealing with today. Job assignments, hiring, and discipline within the Cincinnati Police Department. So in 1968, the organization was formed, and in 2020, it's running strong now.
Yes.
So we stand on the shoulders of those gentlemen that paved the way. We thank them, the trailblazers that made it, I'm not going to say easy, but made the road a little easier for us in 2020.
And you were there how long, Scotty?
I was in.
Because people should know, and I think they know you. You're so well known around town. You just retired after how many
November
years?
2nd, 33 years.
Wow.
After 33 years, and it was an honor to serve. It was, I gotta say, one of the highest honors that I achieved as a Cincinnati police officer was being elected as president of the Sentinel Police Association for 3 terms. But it was a great run, a lot of great people, and the service to the community is what I'm most proud of. Absolutely.
What do conversations look like between you all? Because obviously, you know, continuing this mission, I'm always getting emails from you about everything that's going on. I feel like you are like my news source for certain things going on in the
Well,
community.
thank you,
Talk to us
Alexis.
about what your goals and things are now, especially from what you've seen during your years of service.
Well, I would say this is that being the present president, I have to draw from past presidents. They've laid a lot of strong foundation for the organization, and we have to continue to stand on that foundation. We focus on hiring, promotion, discipline, and assignments, and they're important, especially to our members, our African American members. We make up about 29% of the police department right now as African Americans, and we want to have an impact also in the community. We do a senior Christmas party. We basically, the Sentinels basically fund that's held out at District 4. And I think you guys may have covered it, I'm not sure. And it was a great success. We participate in the BFR, which is Black Family Reunion. And our staple event is the Martin Luther King Jr. Awards and Scholarship Banquet, which will be held this Saturday at the Netherland Plaza. So we strive still to be heavily involved in the community. Me and Scotty and I were talking over there, and one thing that sometimes gets glossed over is we are oftentimes a bridge between the police department and the African American community. When there are issues going on, people in the community, because they know us, they will call us personally and ask us how they may handle certain situations or deal with certain situations. And we also have a strong relationship with some of the other Black organizations in the city, NAACP, National Black Front, NAN, those type of groups that we wanted to create a relationship with, so when the issues do arise, we can show one strong, united front.
It's hard to believe that we are approaching nearly 20 years since the riots here in Cincinnati. I mean, just to say that is almost hard to believe. But out of that was born this collaborative agreement that people hear all about. How effective has that been in where we were, let's say, 20 years ago to where we are now?
It's monumental, Curtis. Monumental. It's something that helped to actually make sure people understood why we do what we do. The Sentinel Police Association was an intricate part. We stayed open around the clock to allow citizens to respond to the Sentinel office, to lodge their complaints, and eventually the collaborative agreement along with the Black United Front was born.
You were president then.
I was president at that time, and at that time also, the Sentinel Police Association issued an apology to the African American community based on how they were being treated over the years. It wasn't real popular within the department, but it helped to bridge that gap, as Lewis talked about, and it helped us to be that trustworthy group of men and women that the community could count on and call anytime and ask any difficult question. But without the collaborative agreement, I don't think we would be where we are now. I think Cincinnati has made monumental steps in getting it right in police-community relations. We're not there, but we're much further than a lot of other cities. So the Sentinel Police Association over the years since 1968 has done a world of good for the city of Cincinnati, not only police-community relations, but just race relations in the city. And we have to make sure that that's one of the things we stick our chest out and say, hey, I'm a proud member of the Sentinel Police Association that's done monumental things for this city.
And quickly, before we let you go, some folks would say, well, wow, talking about representation, I mean, looking at Chief Isaac and the relationship among you all, and the fact that you all do the unpopular thing, you do what you feel like is right. Talk to us about the power of having that type of representation so high up in the department.
Well, I think first we need to go back. We need to look at issue 5, which the Sentinels were very strong and very involved in, and that opened the door for us to bring in 2 outside chiefs, which were African American, who were on the cutting edge in their thinking when it came to police and community relations, and that was James Craig and then Jeffrey Blackwell. And now we have a 3rd African American chief. So we've had 3 African American chiefs in the last decade. Before that, we went 200 years without an African American chief. And the Sentinels were a big part of that, just keeping to the forefront how important race relationships is and how important equity and equality is within the police department.
Wow.
Hey, it's always good talking to both of you. Yeah. Next on Let's Talk Cincy, sharing a dream to serve the community.
The efforts that have brought police and firefighters together and where they want to take their organizations in the future. When we return. Well, we have definitely been in for a treat, and we are wrapping up our conversations on the Sentinel Police Association as well as the African American Firefighters Association.
Lou Arnold said he wasn't going to leave. He's the president of the Sentinels, and Will West is back from CAFA. We talked a little bit about women in the fire department. Someone we should point out, and Lou, tell us a little bit more about Kimberly and her involvement in the police department.
Well, Kim Williams, first of all, was the first African-American female captain on the Cincinnati Police Department, which is pretty awesome. She loved youth. She built some strong youth programs and got funding for our cadet program that still exists within the police department. She's dearly missed because after her promotion, soon after she was diagnosed with cancer, and she's no longer with us, but her impact and her legacy lives forever in the police department, in that our vice president of the Sentinel Police Association is the 2nd female African-American captain in the history of the police department. So Kim paved that way. She showed other women, in particular African-American women on the department, I've done it and you can do it. So her legacy lives on.
What amazes me about both of you all, both of your organizations, is that it really is a family.
Yes.
And I know that you all see each other out and about all the time. I mean, we see you out and about all the time. Talk about some maybe common goals that you all have among each other.
I'll let Will start.
As Brother President stated earlier, we do have common goals such as the BFR event, the MLK banquet, the current PSA, Public Safety Academy program that's going to be up and running this upcoming year in the fall. Not only that, you know, like you said, this is a part of our brotherhood. We work together side by side on emergency scenes, and you know, we depend on each other. We depend on each other.
And quickly, where do you see both organizations going? Very
Well,
quickly.
we have to set an example for the city of black organizations working together, showing unity and power in one, and having a positive impact on the city, which will impact the young people and encourage our young people to follow the professions that we both chosen to follow.
I agree. Obviously, we know that we are stronger together, both organizations, and that impact, that anything that we feel individually, one should support the other. You know, whether it's us only having 28% African Americans on the fire department, and I'm sorry, I had to correct that number from earlier, and our endeavor to continue to, you know, merge with CPS so we can mold the youth of Cincinnati.
Yes.
The community needs this, I think. You know, this helps, as we said earlier, you know, our community work their way out of poverty on their own. These are good jobs. You know, you can take care of your families, and maybe we can have less crime.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, and that does it for this edition of Let's Talk Cincy.
We'll see you next time. Stay encouraged.